Cole Sports presents on the Daily. Well, welcome back to the channel VIP. Cole Johnson's on the mic on the Daily. It's on tap, presented by Cole Sports. This is a channel that has content that comes every Monday through Friday right at you. And subscribe if you want to be that man at the sports pub. Let's get to it. Actually, let's really get to it right now.
In a world where partial greatness is celebrated and total greatness is shunned, there stands to be a figure on the lips of those who love him and those who hate him. The inane comparisons to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant continue and has existed since 2003. There is no end in sight, for the battle between those who unconditionally love and unconditionally hate him wages on. These are their stories. Welcome to the Bronzexual Confessions.
Okay, I'm going to be completely forthright here. This isn't going to be this one player to me is better than another. This isn't going to be I think that LeBron is at fault here and he's not at fault there. It's not going to be that type of video. I figured that we're coming upon Thanksgiving. It's a peaceful time of the year. I want to have a peaceful type of conversation with you, VIP. So the thing that I have noticed, especially in dealing with 2 weeks ago with Isaiah Thomas and his video about the toughest players he played against with regards to Michael Jordan being slighted, is there seemingly is a generational gap in terms of who is the greatest player in terms of what people think. Follow me here. So if you are a millennial, chances are millennial NBA fan would say the greatest player is LeBron James. You might get a nod to Kobe Bryant. It depends on how old the millennial NBA fan happens to be. Then you get to the older, the oldest millennial or Gen X annual and Gen Xers, and they'll be liable to say that it's Michael Jordan, and unequivocally so it's him. They may get a nod to Kobe, and they may even say Magic or Bird might be our guy. But more often than not, a Gen Xer will say Michael Jordan. You get to the baby boomers in the world, and they would be inclined to say something to the effect of maybe Dr. J or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You might get some who might say even Oscar Robertson or even other players like Clyde Frazier or George Gervin. You may get those types of names thrown at you. Some who only just deal with college may even say Pete Maravich. But that's normally the names that get mentioned with that group. Then you get to my father's age, the greatest generation, and they would be liable to say it's Wilt Chamberlain, and I don't care what you say to me, there isn't a player greater than he is. Now, you might have some who would say Bill Russell is, but the way my father told me about him was that his game was not necessarily strong on offense. He was great defensively, and he had guys around him who were more suited to score and who probably was more talented in certain areas than he was. But Wilt was a one-man gang. All throughout these different generations, the generational breakdown seems to happen this way. And I find it to be enthralling, actually, that it is such. But a funny thing happened along the way. And I was listening to watching actually on the podcast on All the Smoke that stars Steven Jackson and great. I'm blanking on the other's name. Hard. That's so sad. But was looking at All the Smoke, and they had Chris Bosh, the former Raptor, former Heat, on as a guest, and it was funny. It was a misleading title to the video. It said Chris Bosh states that LeBron James is the GOAT. And that's not really true. That's not what he said. If you listen to him, he basically says, Lord, let me do it correctly. Chris Bosh essentially said, quote, imagine being on top of your game for 17 years. I mean, if anybody's going to be in the GOAT conversation, be considered one of the greatest players in the game. Close quote. And on his ear and on his face, that's really a good statement, and it's actually true. One of the things about LeBron that I think is wonderful is that he has been at close range to the top dog for, I won't say all of 17 years. I'll say, 14 of those years. And he's only had one injury-plagued season in the 17 thus far. And that really means something, because when you look at him, you look at this guy who he is all about the athletics. I mean, just look at him. 6'9" and 260. He has the build of Karl Malone, but he acts like a point guard and a wing player all combined. So I get why people are enamored with this guy. I get why people have wow, he's the greatest guy I've ever seen love. I get why why people say that about it, because we haven't seen a talent like him. If I were to say, okay, well, he reminds me of James Worthy. He reminds me of Magic Johnson. He reminds me of Larry Bird. He reminds me of Michael Jordan. He reminds me of Julius Erving. He reminds me of Moses Malone. I'd be lying to you. He is a difference maker in terms of an athlete. If I were to say anything otherwise, I'd be lying to you. And in the almost 75 years of the NBA, LeBron James, and I'm including Wilt Chamberlain in this, to me, Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest athlete the NBA ever produced until LeBron. LeBron James is the greatest athlete the NBA ever had. Ever had. LeBron James is the greatest athlete the NBA has ever had. There isn't a debate about that in my mind. So I think when you have how he is as an athlete on the court, and you combine that with how he is off the court, you get the GOAT vibes. And it's similar to Muhammad Ali. I mean, Ali, he did take some L's in the ring, but people focused on the fact that he sacrificed mightily in order to have the career that he eventually ended up having. And he became, for all intents and purposes, he became a civil rights activist. So when you talk about Muhammad Ali, the conversation shifts a bit, because you're not focused on what he did in the ring. You focused on what he did out the ring too, and you combine the two things. And I really believe a lot of people do the same thing with LeBron. And it's easy to do because I've said it, and I'll continue to say it. LeBron, to me, is one of the most likable figures the NBA has ever had, too. I mean, I've even said he's more likable than even Jordan, to me. And I like Jordan, but to me, I like LeBron as a man more than Jordan. As a basketball player, that's a different story. So when we have these GOAT conversations, it's broken between generations, and you get more of the, well, LeBron needs to be considered type of talk with guys who played with him. And I get that. And I can't hate that. I can't hate on that. However, when you see these polls like the one USA Today put forth last year, where they asked 117 players who's the best player of all time, you had Kobe Bryant at third with 11% of the vote. You had LeBron James with 12, and you had Michael Jordan, who ran away with it, earning and garnering 73% of the vote. That's players. These were players who were polled, and they answered that way. What the fans think? It's funny because it's almost similar. This was an article that was produced by ESPN in October 2020, where 73% of the fans say that it's Jordan. 71% of the players say it's Jordan. 73% of the fans say it's Jordan. It's not hating. It's not hating at all. It's just fact. I mean, just look at the overall impact that a guy like Michael Jordan did. And you look at the overall impact of what LeBron James has done. And I can honestly tell you, off the court, LeBron waxes Jordan. And Jordan has contributed to many charities. He's stepped up his social justice game a little bit. But he was more along the lines of being a corporate guy, where it's like, he famously said back in the mid-90s, and I mean, he was on a golf course getting interviewed, and he actually said, quote, "Republicans buy my shoes too." Close quote. So you have that, and people do not forget that about him. Meanwhile, you have LeBron, who he is outward about who he believes and how he politically stands, which I sometimes think he needs to not take back the worst, but taper back the thought. Because do we really need to know that? But that's him. And whether I like it or not doesn't matter. But many players and many fans say, even though LeBron is great, Jordan is greater. And that isn't slight. Take it up with USA Today. Take it up with ESPN. They polled players and they polled fans. That's what they think, and that's what they believe. And if that's hating, I'm sorry. Oh, and aside, the other co-host of All the Smoke is Matt Barnes. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to blank out on you. But the generations seem to have different viewpoints and judging in terms of who's the greatest. But the barbershop conversations will always continue. It'll always be riveting. No matter who you consider to be the best to ever don the sneakers.
In a world where contradiction and hypocrisy exist, lies the truth to set us all free. Here is where we all get enlightened. This has been yet another installment of The Bronzexual Confessions.
Now, if you want this shirt that you see right before your very eyes, the description box below has all the deets as to where to get it and the many ways that you can get it. And if you feel as me that it's an interesting conversation of who's the greatest of all time, I want to hear what you have to say. Is it Jordan? Is it LeBron? Is it whomever else? Like this video and share it throughout all of your social media. Comment below, because I really want to hear what you have to say, VIP. This is wonderful. And don't forget, hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel, which content emanates from here. For all of us at Cole Sports, I'm Cole Johnson. Thank you so much and enjoy your family. this Thanksgiving weekend. This has been yet another installment of Cool Sports on the Visual and on the Daily.